Hello and welcome, everybody. Today is World Spay Day, and to celebrate, we're holding our first ever town hall, highlighting the many wonderful ways PETA is helping dogs, cats, and other animals. I'm Lisa Lange, PETA's Senior Vice President of Communications, and I'll be your host tonight. I'm joined by PETA President Ingrid Newkirk, Director of our Mobile Clinics Division, Lori Jo Ciccone, and Senior Vice President of Cruelty Investigations, Daphna Nachminovitch. We'll be giving away a viewing of Breaking the Chain, the powerful new documentary film tracking the work we'll be discussing tonight, to 10 of our listeners. So please stay with us until the end. If you're just joining our meeting, welcome. I'm your host, Lisa Lange. We'll be taking your questions live a bit later, and you can get yours in by pressing 0 on your phone at any time. If you're joining us online, just type your question into the field at the bottom of the screen. And you can press 7 on your phone at any time to donate towards PETA's vital work for companion animals. Every gift made up to our $30,000 goal will be matched. Okay. It sounds like most of our callers are on the line, so here's PETA President Ingrid Newkirk. Ingrid?
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for supporting PETA's critically important work for companion animals. We'll be sharing some of our truly heartwarming stories tonight that show how PETA is transforming the world for these animals. You may not know that even before I founded PETA, I was already doing all I could to get people to see dogs and cats as individuals with their own needs and their own desires, to see them as family members, not as things, and not something to be acquired on impulse and tossed out when you were bored with them. In Washington, D.C., where we're headquartered now on the East Coast, back in the late 70s, before most of our staff were even born, I became the first female pound master. I do love that title because it sounds so exotic. Luckily, that title gave me the authority to stop the practice of selling animals from that pound for $5 a pop. These dogs went to dog fighters, junkyard operators, even to experimenters from the local universities. In fact, to literally anyone who came through the door. That was one of my first acts. Another of my first acts there was to break apart the pound's decompression chamber with a sledgehammer. That DC pound had been such a hellhole that I was named Washingtonian of the Year for transforming it into a clean and safe place where animals actually got the care they needed. And I was also able to start the very first government-funded Spay and Neuter clinic. That was a real milestone. Now, not to make your eyes glaze over with the math, but you know that one unspayed female dog and her offspring can produce thousands of puppies in just a few years if she manages to stay alive and if her pups start reproducing at 6 months and their pups do the same at 6 months and so on and so on. It's cumulative. And one female cat and her offspring can produce even more thousands of kittens and cats and cats and cats over those years. So a Spay and Neuter program was a godsend in Washington because it was a city with so many poverty pockets. Then after PETA was founded and we moved our headquarters to Norfolk, Virginia, some years later, we launched our very own mobile Spay and Neuter clinic. That was in 2001. Now we have 3 fully equipped Winnebagos out there. And our small but mighty team of clinic Spay and Neuter staff conduct emergency surgeries. They sterilize animals 6 days a week. Our field workers provide free door-to-door transport when guardians have no way to get to us or to get back. And when I'm in Norfolk, because I do switch between our offices even now, I look out of the kitchen window first thing in the morning And I often am there before the sun is up, and I see the clinics heading off. They're all going to rural areas to fix animals in trailer parks and shopping plazas. And sometimes when the clinics are holding spay and neuter events in our parking lot at PETA HQ, I can see dogs who have never, ever left their chains before, and they're lined up with their people to have their lives changed forever, meaning no more pups born out in the cold, no more kittens born under the porch. But Lisa is jogging my virtual elbow, so back to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Ingrid. A quick reminder that you can double your impact on our spay-neuter work and other programs for companion animals by pressing 7 to give right now, or tap the button on the front of PETA.org. We need to earn every penny of that $30,000 match. And remember, we'll be giving away 10 chances to view the Angelica Houston-produced documentary about our shelter and field work. It's called Breaking the Chain, and we'll be giving away those copies near the end of the meeting. Now, I'll let Ingrid pick back up.
Thanks, Lisa. It's a wonderful, wonderful film. I recommend it highly. It makes me cry, but it also makes me really happy. And yes, as Lisa said, please press 7 and give us generously as you can, because we need your help to secure that special match, a wonderful match, and provide more surgeries, more dog houses, more other necessities to dogs and cats who have almost nothing, and sometimes actually nothing. Now, let me introduce you to the remarkable person who keeps our clinics running like a well-oiled machine. It's Laurie Jones Ciccone. Laurie Jo has been an animal caretaker since she was a teenager. She began her work as a licensed veterinary technician, specializing in orthopedic surgeries and exotic animals. And that was before we talked her into joining our clinics full-time in 2008. Today, Laurie Jo is helping us deliver life-saving spay, neuter, and other services to more than 12,000 animals every single year. Laurie Jo, over to you.
Thank you, Ingrid, and hello, everyone. As Lisa mentioned, today is the official commemoration of Spay Day, but for PETA's Mobile Clinic Division, every day is Spay Day. 6 days a week, we're out helping animals in poor rural communities who might otherwise never be sterilized or seen by a vet. Each of our clinics is custom built to our specifications and equipped to spay and neuter as many as 30 animals in a single shift. Every one of those animals can enjoy significant health benefits from their surgery, but our clinics are also making a difference that you may not see. PETA donors have helped us sterilize more than 188,000 animals since our program began, which means millions, billions of animals aren't being born and abandoned on the street or flooding shelters that are already bursting at the seams with animals looking for a loving home. The scale of the homeless animal crisis means every spay and neuter surgery is critical, and these procedures can even directly resolve life or death emergencies for animals like one named O.C. When an older gentleman, a veteran, brought his beloved 11-year-old dog O.C. to us, she was suffering from pyometra, which is a painful uterine infection that plagues unspayed dogs. O.C.'s desperate owner had no other resources, nowhere else to go, and no idea what he was going to do to help her. This poor man was actually crying when he finally found us. O.C.'s condition was deteriorating, so our surgeon took her in right away without an appointment or a moment's hesitation and spayed her. It saved her life. This man was so grateful, I don't even know how many times he texted us afterwards to thank us. Our clinics are the model for an efficient, safe, high-volume spay and neuter program. Our veterinarians do almost exclusively spay and neuter surgeries, so they're among the best in their field. The animals get the pain management they need, and they're under anesthesia for shorter periods of time than they would be at a private practice. But this vital work does not come cheap. Our clinics cost more than $1.4 million a year to run. but preventing births and saving animals like OC really is priceless. On a typical day, we arrive at headquarters at 6:30 a.m., get the clinics ready, pick up any animals the PETA field workers have brought in to be fixed, and drive to our location for the day, sometimes as far as 2 hours away, and start checking in the animal. We share instructions with guardians before they leave, so they'll be fully prepared to care for their animals post-op. Then we start surgery. The dozens of animals we spay or neuter are able to go home that same day, and we're just a phone call away at our 24-hour hotline if we need to address any surgery-related questions. Some agencies shut down spay-neuter surgeries and remained open for vaccines during lockdown, which was ridiculous. We didn't. Throughout the pandemic, our team kept right on doing surgeries. We are always extremely busy and on a tight schedule, but whatever the challenge, we rise to beat it. Obviously, the pandemic makes it impossible for us to hold spay-a-thons like we have on past spay days. So this weekend, we're kicking off a partnership in 2 rural Virginia towns that have few resources and no program at all like ours. We'll be spaying and neutering more than 100 animals before the weekend's over.
This is so wonderful. Our heroes for animals like Lori Jo truly are changing lives this spay day and every day. But it does seem that for every animal our field workers transport to and from the clinics, or for every emergency surgery that saves an animal like Ossie, who Lori Jo talked about, we uncover another animal who is breeding or suffering from illness or is injured. We recently helped a frantic family who had a pit bull named Dior. They always have such fancy names. Anyway, Dior, poor thing, was suffering from a painful ear hematoma. And we provided round-trip transport to help the family out. And we also routinely treat open wounds, prolapses, skin and upper respiratory infections, and other conditions. And many grateful guardians make a token payment for these services. It could be a pittance. One family, quite literally, gave us a bag of peanuts. Many more can't afford anything at all. And that's why it's your support that keeps the clinics afloat. So please remember these animals and the ones we're going to find, and press 7 to give right now. I would like to thank several people already. We've got Jane from Hartsville, Ohio, $50. Thank you. That will make $100. Alex from Blacksburg, $75. Brandon, Atlanta, Georgia, $200. That's just terrific. Beth, thank you so much. Binghamton, New York, $25. All this adds up. And you are pitching in this evening, and it is so wonderful that you're doing so. We have to get close to that $30,000 match. I don't want to see a penny of that not go to help animals. And please don't forget, everyone listening tonight has a chance to win a digital copy of that really terrific documentary about PETA's work for companion animals, Breaking the Chain. So please stay with us to see if you're a winner. Now, let's go back a few years before we rolled out our first mobile clinic. It was 1996 when PETA moved our headquarters to Norfolk, and we found that animal abandonment, animal homelessness was absolutely everywhere in the surrounding communities. Sometimes it seemed as if the rural roads were lined with discarded animals. They were there by the side of the road as you drove by, and you could see lonely dogs chained up out back. Many animals we found actually just ignored those dogs when they were sick or when they were even dying. Even when it was a scorching summer day, they didn't bother to give them water. They just forgot about them. And they fed them, catch this, every second or third day if they remembered. In winter, we found dogs so entangled on their chains that they were covered in icicles. They were unable to reach whatever shoddy box or barrel they had for shelter. And the local animal shelters which more accurately I think should be called pounds, relied on prisoner day labor or a part-time dog warden who also worked for city sanitation or something. That was their staff. And the cats, I always remember the cats in cages next to the barking dogs. How traumatic for them. And in those shelters, no heat at all in winter. There was also no veterinary care, even for the most severe conditions, which meant that we found animals with festering wounds, broken bones, and surprise, surprise, these hellholes had no open hours, no adoptions, and no spaying and neutering, of course. Abandoning dogs and cats, people just simply took them to the shelter and dumped them there. And then what happened to them is they were later shot in the head or they were poisoned with gas in a rusty metal box. It was worse in the 1970s in D.C. So while PETA had moved to the area to better promote animal rights internationally, what could we do? We couldn't look away from what was happening in our own front yard. We had to launch a program to help these animals. And we have been dramatically improving facilities and those animals' lives every day since then. We have wonderful stories to share. So what I'll do now is turn this over to someone familiar to those of you who have already seen Breaking the Chain. That's Senior Vice President of Cruelty Investigations, Daphna Nachminovitch. Her determined leadership is what's helped us provide more than 7,500 sturdy dog houses to those lonely backyard dogs. She's secured more than 1,500 criminal charges against animal abusers, and she's got historic legal measures passed to protect dogs from being tethered outside 24/7, and that's been very hard work to get those bills through. Daphna came to us because she called up our hotline one day from, I think it was Chicago, to report a really deplorable pet store. And she heard our voicemail say, for job opportunities, press 7. And so she pressed 7. And that reminds me, you can press 7 now for a very different reason. So please do press 7 tonight and give towards PETA's wonderful work for these dogs and these cats and these other animals. Thank you. Daphna, over to you.
Thank you, Ingrid. And 7 has been my lucky number ever since. PETA's field team is on call every day and every night, ready to jump into action and crawl through sewers. I've certainly done that myself, or under houses, trailers, cars, sheds, you name it, to rescue the most terrified, helpless animals. In some of the poorest communities in southeastern Virginia and northeastern North Carolina, where we visit animals every single day, we find them left out of sight and out of mind, with nothing to shelter them from rain, snow, and bitter cold in winter like we've had just this past week, or from the beating sun and sweltering summer heat for that matter. Some are so disposable in their owner's view that they don't even have names. They just sit there, alone, outside, miserable, watching life pass them by. So it falls to PETA's team to build trust in the community and to help educate deeply unknowing owners. My team assists area shelters with adoption or spay-neuter events. We give away books with animal-friendly messages to our clients' children. And of course, we offer a broad array of important services for animals who may have never experienced as much as a kind word or a gentle touch. All they've heard is get back, get down, or shut up when they bark, when someone throws food to them, if they even bother to do that. We deliver kindness, along with nutritious food, and we shave matted fur and clip toenails, small things that can mean the world to animals who have maggot infestations under their matted fur or can't even walk in the small pen they have because their nails have painfully curled under and into their paws. And we provide flea and tick prevention, fly strike ointment. You wouldn't believe what flies do to dogs' ears in hot weather. They actually eat off the tips of their ears. And of course, we deliver treatment for potentially fatal parasite infestations. All of this totally free of charge. We also meet and help dogs who are chained or penned day after day, 24/7, 365, eating, drinking, and sleeping in their own waste. They can get tangled, as Ingrid mentioned, and sometimes they hang themselves, or they die of exposure, starvation, or dehydration when they get stuck out of reach of their shelter or knock over their bowls or buckets. That's if there is anything at all in those bowls or buckets. During a winter storm recently, our team found one dog named Hazel here in Virginia gulping snow because she didn't have anything else to drink. Some dogs freeze to death or die of heat stroke before we can get to them. And when that happens, we work to see their owners prosecuted to keep them from condemning more dogs to the same fate. It's just shocking to see what some people try to pass off as shelter out there. We see dogs like Max and Blanco, who only have flimsy plastic igloos, airline crates which have holes in them, or rusty wire cages, which of course provide no protection whatsoever. That's when we intervene. We see other dogs trying to find refuge from the rain and snow under old water containers, trash cans, or even furniture, like the chest of drawers in a junk-filled backyard that a dog named Robo was kept in. To help them, as many of you know, PETA builds and delivers sturdy, custom-made dog houses. We also have a team of staffers and volunteers delivering straw bedding all winter long throughout the weekend. Straw stays dry, unlike blankets that freeze when they get wet, and those just make things much worse for these poor dogs. And I can assure you that with PETA, it's never just doghouse and done. Our field workers always do their level best to persuade owners to unchain or unpen dogs and let them live indoors as part of the family, or even to surrender them to us so that they won't keep on suffering out there. But when all else fails, we keep visiting routinely, regularly, offering small kindnesses and care to make dogs less miserable. We give them fresh water in the summer, fill their food bowls, loosen tight collars, and manage to take away dogs who have embedded ones in their necks. And we always replace heavy logging chains with lightweight tangle-free tie-outs. We also give them love, affection, attention, respect, and play. They know the sound of our vans, and those tails start thumping when they hear us pull in, because field workers' visits are sometimes the only thing that these dogs have to look forward to. So in a nutshell, if you haven't noticed by now, we never, ever give up on an animal in need. That requires us to also work behind the scenes, initiating legislation to ban continuous tethering. Thanks to PETA's persistence and perseverance, all 7 cities in Hampton Roads, Virginia, where Lori Jo and I are based, have passed tethering restriction ordinances. Most, in fact, outright ban this cruel practice. And after we pushed hard and collaborated and compromised for several years, the Virginia General Assembly passed a desperately needed animal protection bill that went into effect just last summer, to the sound of our champagne corks popping. So now it is completely legal for residents in Virginia to keep dogs tethered outside during storms and when temperatures are freezing and when it's 85 degrees or higher. We also got passed a law mandating that in winter, dog houses have a windbreak and dogs must have access to insulating bedding. And in summer, all dog houses must be placed in the shade. Years of work just to get those pittances for animals. But every little bit helps. And for the dogs, these seemingly small things can mean the difference between life and death. Ultimately, of course, our goal is to have every animal enjoy a joyful, fun-filled life inside with a family who adores them. Towards that end, when animals are given to PETA, we place many of those who are healthy and adoptable with our trusted partners at high-traffic shelters here in Hampton Roads. And other animals we foster ourselves until we place them with a perfect family. Of course, we never give an animal away to just anyone. We carefully screen all adoption applications, perform a home visit without fail, and put serious safeguards in place to make sure everything is in the animal's best interest before they leave our care. Wolfie is just one of those animals whose life we helped change. Despite her gentle nature, Wolfie was chained outside, alone, 24/7, trapped in a patch of mud that went up to her ankles when it rained. She had a neglectful owner, nothing to look forward to other than our visits, no companionship, no exercise, no enrichment whatsoever. We visited Wolfie for years, trying to convince her owner to let us take her, but he repeatedly refused. We replaced her useless plastic crate with a custom-built wooden doghouse, and we brought her toys, treats, straw, and of course lots of love. But we can only visit one dog so often. We have thousands and thousands of cases. And Wolfie grew more and more timid and depressed over time. Sometimes we couldn't even coax her out of the doghouse we had given her. We were starting to worry that Wolfie had become too emotionally scarred by her loneliness and terrible conditions to ever trust anyone again. But our persistence finally paid off. We wore her owner down, and he gave her to us. That was a wonderful day. Today, Wolfie is doted on by a family, including a sweet 8-year-old boy who adores her. And she has a little dog friend who keeps her happy, and she lounges on the sofa with their humans when she's not taking them for walks. She's finally a full-fledged family member with the care and respect that every dog deserves.
Thank you so much, Daphna. Remember, everyone, if you have questions about how PETA is breaking the chain of misery for dogs like Wolfie and other companion animals, press 0 at any time to share them with a staffer before your chance to ask them live later in the meeting. You can also contribute to the life-saving work you're hearing about tonight by pressing 7 right now. Your gift, along with those from generous donors like Rita in Deerfield, Wisconsin, who just donated $25, Laura in Oyster Bay, New York, $200, which will be doubled, Molly in Riverdale, New York, $250. Thank you so much. Muriel in Stamford, Connecticut just donated $100. And Syed in San Jose, California, hello, Syed, $1,000, which becomes $2,000 tonight. And Robin in Richmond, Texas, $50. Thank you so much. And Thomas in Quebec, $250. All of these wonderfully generous donations will help us secure that $30,000 match. Now back to you, Daphna.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you everyone for your support. So you've heard how our field workers rack up the miles on their daily routes, visit animals as often as they possibly can to check on them, and constantly nudge agencies to hold abusers accountable. In cases involving heat stroke, starvation, or other fatal cruelty to animals, we've also gone to court to provide footage or testimony that's led abusers to be banned from ever owning animals again. This doesn't undo the deaths or suffering of animals like the 3 dogs whose bloated and decomposing corpses our field workers discovered just over 3 days in one North Carolina county last summer, or those who freeze solid to the ground beneath them, or the dog whose emaciated body we found locked in a crate alongside a pit bull mix who was still alive and starving. Luckily, that dog survived, was rehabilitated, and found a wonderful home. But charges and sentences do protect other animals from tragedy, and they help ensure that suffering doesn't go ignored or unpunished. They send abusers a loud and clear message that cruelty to animals is not tolerated in our society. Nevertheless, our field workers can only travel so far, and on a daily basis, we receive reports of cruelty and neglect from all over the U.S., up north in Canada, and even around the world. It's not uncommon for a kind person who spots an animal emergency to hit a dead end when authorities aren't cooperative or simply unmotivated. That's why PETA has a nationwide emergency response team, a group of staffers who are on call day and night, year-round, doing everything they can to help whenever and wherever an animal is in crisis. That means help for the dogs who were tethered outside without shelter during last week's Arctic blast, as well as injured opossums or deer struck by cars, ducklings washed into storm drains, or terrified cats stuck atop the tall trees during rain and snow, unable to go down backwards like raccoons do. We send firm letters to some owners, cajoling letters to others, and always provide guidance to help them improve animals' living conditions. Really, we do everything under the sun, from arranging transport to emergency vet clinics when animals like birds and mice are caught on glue traps. We've used Uber to rush wild birds to rehabilitators when they're inexplicably grounded. Oh, and this is a big one. If we suspect intentional cruelty and abuse may be involved, we dig into local animal protection measures and gather evidence to build our case. Sometimes all it takes is one call from PETA to get law enforcement to take action. But if a gentle nudge doesn't do the trick, we get louder and louder and keep going until we succeed. We also respond to disgusting fetish, so-called crush videos, in which animals are tortured for human pleasure, and to shootings, beatings, and other cruelty cases that are spotted on social media. And we get convictions, even jail time, before anyone else falls victim. Let me share a story with you as an example of what we can accomplish with just a few phone calls and just a little bit of sleuthing. A recent tip to our after-hours emergency phone line pointed us towards a disturbing Snapchat video showing a teenager viciously punching a black and white cat in the head. We immediately got to work, called the local police department, provided crucial evidence, which had by then been taken off of the internet, coached the police officers through the process of seizing the cat from his abuser as quickly as possible, something this very nice police officer had no idea how to do and had never done before. And we even got this police officer to transport the cat to a veterinary clinic in a different jurisdiction, where we covered the cost of the cat's treatment and hospitalization through the weekend. We were very afraid that the cat, named Oreo, might be fatally wounded. We had no way of knowing whether he'd been enduring beatings off camera too, which we suspected. But living up to his name, I'm happy to report that Oreo is one tough cookie. He miraculously made it through without permanent brain damage. Now, the only remaining sign of his ordeal is a cauliflowered left ear, which makes him even more handsome. And his story has a sweet ending. The PETA staffer who was fostering Oreo fell in love with him and adopted him. So Oreo now has a wonderful human and several other feline companions. He's come out of his shell and revealed quite a charming, goofy personality. And we weren't going to let Oreo's abuser get by either. We pushed for criminal charges, and he was sentenced to juvenile probation and, most importantly, banned from owning animals. He was also ordered to pay restitution to PETA for the cost of Oreo's veterinary care. As you know, animal abusers don't typically stop after just one victim, so we will keep our eyes on him as time goes on. And now I'm going to pass it on to Lori Jo again.
PETA's hotlines and emergency response teams are fielding calls all day, every day, and they even get busier when abuse goes viral on social media during winter, holidays, when other agencies are closed, sometimes for days on end, and as we saw last week, when storms and other disasters strike. From the moment we get the forecast for a significant weather event, PETA rushes out critical information to weather and news channels to help guardians prepare ahead of time and keep four-legged family members safe. During and afterwards, we're responding to emergency reports, monitoring the ever-changing situation, and when things look truly dire, sending resources or rescue teams. We've been in Texas and Louisiana after major hurricanes, wading through contaminated floodwaters and pulling lost and abandoned animals to safety. One generous donor even helped us charter a private plane to Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, so that our team could distribute food and help prepare overwhelmed shelters there. And after our relief work is done, we often return home with extra passengers, animals who we help place in loving homes.
Thanks, Lori Jo. I should also mention here our support of spay and neuter projects not only in Puerto Rico, but in other places like Mexico, where we partner with government and local rescuers. And then there's the hard work of our international affiliates in Romania and India. We've spayed so many cats in the slums of Mumbai and in the Philippines. Last week in the Philippines, in Manila, we were in a cemetery where people and their animals actually live in tombs and on gravestones, and they have no funds whatsoever to care for the animals who live with them. They eat scraps, but they couldn't possibly sterilize them. So we stepped in and spayed 29 cats and dogs in one day. Our affiliates provide those spay and neuter services and veterinary care, also emergency assistance programs, all on their own, and they're making landmark progress toward a kinder world. Obviously, the homeless animal crisis is global, and so is PETA's response, which our kind donors make possible. That's the whole deal. So I thank you for that and all your support. Daphna, I think you want to share some other aspect of our work, so I'm passing this over to you again.
Thank you, Ingrid. I wanted to mention here, because PETA practices a true open admission policy, and we never, ever turn any animal away who needs us, that sometimes that means making the difficult decision to arrange or provide euthanasia for those animals. When an animal lies broken and bleeding or ravaged by illness or old age, or has been so sorely failed by humans that they are too terrified or aggressive to ever trust anyone again, a pain-free exit can be the most humane option. And imagine how upset you would be if your dog or cat friend had reached the end of their days, but you couldn't afford to pay a veterinarian to gently end their suffering. Many guardians we meet value the importance of trauma-free end-of-life services for their beloved companions, but they have no affordable options available until they find us. Here's a nice thank you note someone we helped in this way recently sent to us. My dog was in failing health, and I could not get a vet appointment. PETA is the only one who would help me/us. Not only could I not afford the vet bill, PETA did this totally free of charge. We get thankful notes like this one every single week. These guardians often describe us as blessings, angels, all sorts of really wonderful praise. And we are honored to be able to be there for them and their companions when they need us the most.
Thank you, Daphna. We're going to close with the uplifting story of charming senior lady Edith. But first, a reminder to our listeners that this is your last chance to ask any questions you may have for Ingrid, Daphna, or Lori Jo. Just press 0 on your phone. Take it away, Daphna.
Thank you, Lisa. I am so excited to share Edith's story with everyone. Edith is one of the many canine stars of Breaking the Chain, the film we'll be giving to some of our listeners shortly. And let me tell you, Edith deserves that newfound fame. One of our field workers, Jess, who has been with us for many years, met Edith when Edith was just a mere bundle of fluffy black fur. And even though she was kept chained outdoors for the first, get this, 10 years of her life, Edith's puppy-like optimism never waned. She never became fearful or aggressive like so many dogs do, though of course we would have understood if she had, considering the lonely, deplorable conditions she was kept in. Early on, we transported Edith to and from her free spay surgery on one of our mobile clinics, and over the years, we did the best we could to improve her circumstances, bringing her food, water, toys, treats, a doghouse. But I have to say, and this will come as no surprise, what Edith cared most about was getting attention and love. One day, Jess was heartbroken to discover that Edith had vanished. And this happens quite a bit with the dogs that we visit. Given what we know about the dangers of backyard dogs and what they face, we assumed the worst, that Edith had died of exposure or been hit by a car, starved to death, or got attacked by another animal. or a person. The list goes on. Years had passed before a pair of straw volunteers spotted an elderly, unkempt black dog chained behind a rundown trailer. They gave her some straw to help keep her dry, cleaned up the dismal dirt patch she was confined to, and took some photos. And when Jess saw those photos, by sheer coincidence, he was stunned and ecstatic. The dog was Edith. Jess immediately got on the case, got in the van, and learned that Edith's owner was preparing to move again. And this time, she wouldn't be taking Edith with her. Edith was finally ours, and Jess adopted her immediately. Today, Edith has every opportunity and comfort to enjoy her golden years. She helps Jess foster other PETA rescues. She goes camping and hiking. She makes new friends at the dog park. And she shows off the signature bunny hop that lets everyone know she's still a puppy at heart. She was even the flower dog at Jess's wedding. Everyone, please, if you need a reminder of why we never give up, think of Miss Edith, and you can see her and Jess's story play out when you watch Breaking the Chain. Lisa will be drawing our winners shortly.
It's a beautiful, beautiful story, and it's one of many happy endings that we make happen at PETA. Let me take this last moment to thank some wonderful people. Claudine, hi Claudine, Shoreline, Washington, $200, bless your heart. Everything's doubled tonight, you know. Francine La Jolla, $100, thank you. Maryland, Minnesota, $600. Whoopee, this is really grand, we're getting there. Jean in San Mateo, $500, bless your heart. Barbara in Massachusetts, $2,000. That will become $4,000 towards our $30,000 goal. Thank you all so much. Karen, St. Augustine, Florida, $200. Nancy in Wichita, $750. Joan in Gibson, Pennsylvania, $150. Peter in Ontario, California. Hi, Peter, $400. Noreen, you're in Atlanta, $100. Helen, New York, $500. Clarice, I hope it's Clarice. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that. Ashburn, North Carolina, $500. You're all guardian angels for these animals. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, everybody, for helping us make a difference for these dogs, these cats. We even pick up miniature horses, 2 in the last couple of years in terrible conditions. Reptiles, birds, wildlife, this little lizard with a hunchback we got out of someone's hideous little aquarium. It's your support that helps us be there in force, on the ground, on the phone, ready to help when animals are in desperate need. And they are in desperate need. And we're there for them wherever anybody calls us from anyone, anywhere in the world. It's your generosity. It's your generosity that powers this tremendously important spay and neuter campaign and the ones in other countries that spare countless puppies and kittens from being born into homelessness and into a miserable life. So please don't let us miss out on that Spay Day match of $30,000. That'll boost our mobile clinics. It'll boost our other work. It'll be marvelous. So please search your heart and your wallet and give even a little bit before we close if you're able. Give a lot if you can. It makes a huge difference. I can promise you that, and the photographs and the videos show it. So on behalf of Edith and Wolfie and Oreo, on behalf of all of our doghouse recipients and the hundreds of animals we're spaying and neutering this very week, and all animals whose lives we touch, thank you very, very much. And now I think it's time for questions. Lisa?
Yes, thank you. We will get onto the questions. And let's see, the first one is from Dana in Hartford, Connecticut. Dana, what's your question?
Hi, yeah, I was wondering, how can I stop chaining in my community?
Oh, I'd love to take that one. This is Daphna. Hi, Dana.
Great.
Thank you for that wonderful question. Well, first of all, please go to PETA.org/chaining because we have all of the information that you need there. That's PETA.org/chaining. and we will help you. So don't give up. It's not as difficult as you may think, just making a couple of connections with the government officials in your town or your county and making the case. And again, we can help you do that with a lot of data and work with you to educate officials about specific dogs in your community who suffer this fate, just as we have done in our own communities. The most important thing is to never give up. Just don't give up. Sometimes you have to be persistent, and that really does work. Lobbying can take some patience and strategy, but it's perfectly achievable. And more jurisdictions across the country are taking up these ordinances that make it illegal for people to keep their dogs tethered outside unless they are outside with them. So it's lobbying your local officials, getting the information together, and we will help you do that. If you call or email our office, there is someone specifically assigned to hold your hand through this process, and we would be thrilled to do that. So don't give up. Give us a call, and let's go get them.
Thank you, Daphna. I just wanted to add one quick thing. It's also good to pay attention to local politics, and you'll be able to quickly identify people on city council, for example, who tend to show sympathies for animals. And so those could be the people who might champion an ordinance. I think you'd agree, Daph.
Absolutely. And always take the opportunity. If you know of specific animals in your community, it's up to you to tell their stories, and they have no one else to do that.
Okay, thank you, Daphna. And let's see, the next question was submitted on the web, and it's from Maricela in Athens, Georgia. And Maricela asks, how much do you charge for big dogs, and do you do ferals? Daphna, do you mind taking this one too?
Absolutely, my pleasure, yeah. So we actually have a standalone male dog and female dog fee. Male dogs are $85 and female dogs are $105, regardless of whether they are a Chihuahua or a larger dog. And we always sterilize pit bulls for free. And so one thing to also keep in mind is that many of the dogs we sterilize on our clinics are found in the field by our field workers. And all of those dogs are done for free. And the other unique thing about our program is that we will never turn away somebody because they can't afford the fee. So we will work with them. And sometimes, as Ingrid says, we get a bag of peanuts or some homegrown cucumbers. But as long as the dog is spayed, we are happy. And in the field, we use our dog houses to say, we'll give you a dog house if you let us spay your dog or your cat or everybody on the property who is, because sometimes there are multiple chained dogs and many cats running around. And our objective is to prevent more animals from being born into that sad situation. So prevention is the key, and pit bulls are always free. And the other unique thing about our program is the free door-to-door transport that Ingrid mentioned, is that we pick up the animals, take them to our building or take them to the clinic, and then take them back home. And that ensures that animals in low-income areas who would otherwise surely reproduce are sterilized before they bring a litter into the world.
And so
right.
I think part of that was feral cats.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Sorry about that. Yes. So feral cats, yes, we do sterilize feral cats on our clinic. We have what we call a feral cat package, and that includes spay or neuter, a test for feline leukemia and feline AIDS, which are deadly diseases that are contagious to other cats. So we don't want cats to spread that around, and a rabies vaccination and an ear tip. And so in the last 3 years alone, we've spayed and neutered almost 2,000 feral cats and more than 3,300 pit bulls for free. And that's just in the last 3 years. So yes, we absolutely do them for people who are willing to take responsibility for them.
Well, that's all really amazing, Daphna. Thank you. Our next caller is Peter, who is calling in from Denver. Peter, what's your question?
Hi, thanks for a really inspiring town hall, by the way. I was wondering, why are those national emergency cases going to PETA instead of local SPCAs or shelters and the like?
Ingrid, do you want to take that one? Okay.
Yeah, for sure, because it's a simple answer. I'm cheating here. I'm taking a question that has a short answer. No, I I wish we could just say no, go to your local Humane Society. We always do say to people, have you tried your local Humane Society? Have you tried your local SPCA? Have you tried your local police department, sheriff, animal control? And some jurisdictions, and we know this from North Carolina, there is no animal law enforcement body or individual. There just isn't one. And in other areas, the humane officer won't take on certain cases or only work certain hours. Or, tragically, the caller has absolutely got nowhere despite having called the proper agency. And so they turn to us as a last resort. And we will always take those cases and push them through. So it's we're not asking for work. We've certainly got more work than anybody can humanly cope with. But we're not going to say no if we find out that they've done what they can do in their jurisdiction with that result.
Thank you, Ingrid. The next question was submitted on the web, and I think this is a good one for Lori Jo. The question is from Pat in North Carolina, and it is, what are the parameters for spaying and neutering at the clinics? Do you do spaying of prepubescent animals? Lori Jo, could you answer this?
Sure. Yes, we sterilize animals as young as 12 weeks of age and generally up to about 7 years old. After that, we do recommend they go to a stationary clinic to avoid anesthetic or age-related issues. Of course, we do make exceptions for animals like OC and others who are in desperate need of care.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The next is someone calling in from, it's Christy from Edmonton, Alberta. Christy, what's your question?
Hi, how can I convince my husband that it's dangerous to leave our male dog intact?
Lori Jo, this sounds like a good one for you too.
Yeah, that's a good question. The simple answer is it healthier for him, but also male dogs specifically have the potential for testicular cancer, but more so, they're higher risk for prostatitis, which can prevent them from urinating, which not only is painful, can turn into an emergency situation. Also, we see male dogs getting unneutered male dogs getting perianal adenomas, which are a cancerous tumor, and they are specific to unneutered male dogs. So I would tell your husband there's just no excuse not to neuter.
The other
That's
thing,
great.
if
Thank
I
you
may
so much.
jump in here, if I can just say one thing, is what a terrible thing for a male dog to be chained up or in a house even their whole lives sexually frustrated, is because they have so many sensors in their noses, their sense glands, that they know if there's a dog in heat a mile away. And that is torture for them. They want to go and do what nature equips them to do, and yet they can't. They're kept in the house and they're kept in the yard and they're told, or they're on their chain, they can't get out there. So ask your husband if he is feeling, oh no, you're castrating the dog. How would you like it if you could never ever have sexual relations in your whole life, and yet you were driven the way a dog is driven when they know that another dog is in heat? So it's not very delicate to say that, but that's true.
That ought to do it. Yeah. I think we have time for one more question, and it was submitted by Sarah in Queens, New York. The question is, I saw that PETA doesn't like the word pets. Why is that important? And I would love to take that one because many of you probably know, and I'm crazy about the project that we did recently. It's our Idioms project, where we urge people to recognize that language is important. And so we ask people to say, instead of kill two birds with one stone, you say feed two birds with one scone. And I think, besides putting a smile on your face, I think what these idioms, the way we've changed them, and why we ask people to say companion animal instead of pet, is that in every conversation you have with people, you're letting them know how you feel about a certain topic. And if you refer to cats and dogs as companion animals, I think that conveys a certain respect for animals, that you consider their needs, that they're companions to you and not like something that you own, that you bought from a pet shop that you could easily discard, which is really what pet kind of today connotes. So we just urge people to think, just remember that language is important, and there are ways to say things that kind of let every person you talk to know that you care about animals, and more than that, that you care that they get the consideration that they deserve based on who they are. It was something too that Ingrid said at the beginning of the town hall tonight, that, you know, recognizing animals as individuals with their own needs and desires and not something to be acquired on impulse or tossed out when you're bored with them. And I think companion animals is a phrase that does that nicely. So that is the end of our questions. We're about at the end of our town hall. So I just wanted to thank you all for joining us, and to everyone who submitted your questions. We have now selected our 10 winners of the viewing of Breaking the Chain. Please do watch it. It is a beautiful, beautiful documentary. And we'll be following up with each of the winners directly within the next 24 hours. And again, thank you so much. That concludes this evening's town hall. Have a great night.